Good evening, and welcome to the August 19th meeting of the Collectors Club. Tonight's speaker is Keith Harmer, who will be talking to you about fakes and forgeries of the U.S., BNA, Cape of Good Hope, and it will be a discussion of some select pieces. The Harmer family has had a long association with the Collectors Club. Bernard, Keith's father, served on the board of the Collectors Club, as did Keith, and now I'm happy to follow in that tradition. I'm sure if Henry Revel, HR, Bernard's father, was not so busy in London, he would have been at the club too, and would have supported and participated in it. Keith has been in the industry for over 50 years, but more than that, he has been a student of philately. I'm not going to give you the whole Harmer pedigree because I fear it would, if I started down that road, you would never hear Keith talk. Keith has served on the board of the Collectors Club, the Philatelic Foundation, the American Stamp Dealers Association. He has given many talks, and he's been on TV, and he's spoken to many other organizations. He was also a key organizer of Amphilax 71, which was the 75th anniversary of the Collectors Club and really the show of shows. So fakes and forgeries is a very broad topic and sometimes a very technical topic. Keith is going to give you a behind the scenes tour from his vast experience in the hobby. If you are interested in detecting fakes and forgeries, I would encourage you to speak with specialty groups and organizations like the APS that could help you in that area. I'm going to keep this short, so I hope you like what Keith shows and shares with you. I personally found his stories very interesting, and besides, I think he's rather cute. So Keith Harmer, the stage is yours.
Hello. Thank you, Dr. Harmer, for your totally unbiased introduction. My talk this evening is about philatelic fakes and/or forgeries. The question you might ask first is, why do I collect this type of material? As a professional, I handle thousands of stamps and covers, generally belonging to consignors. The thrill of ownership loses its allure. When the unattainable and/or unaffordable is out of reach, where else to turn but to forgeries? In philately in general, I've been inclined towards postal history, hence my collection of forgeries goes in that same direction with a few exceptions. Hold on, a little adjustment. What intrigued me most was the gall, the artistry, the man hours it took the manufacturers to produce these items. And of course, it's always fun to play with the dark side of the force or philately. You'll see pieces that are exciting, amusing, scary, and questionable. Some of the great collectors, auction houses, dealers, and experts have had one time or another faith in these pieces, and a few are still subject to differences in opinion. The basic organization of this group is of about 20 items is US, some BNA, Cape of Good Hope, and a few oddities. At the end of the talk, we will have the normal Q&A, but please put your questions in the Q&A as they arise. Enjoy them, and remember, caveat emptor. The ride begins. To start, the first cover is United States Postmaster Provisional from Providence, Rhode Island, bearing the 5-cent, tied on an 1846 letter to New York. Let's take a quick look at the entire piece, front and back. This item has a particular attachment to me as the Harmer family has been a part of its history. It first appeared in an auction by J.M. Bartels, held, and of all places, at the Collectors Club on November 3rd, 1921. Alphonse B. Slater, the preeminent Providence collector, notified Bartels it was a fake. Bartels withdrew the item. Moving forward, it showed up in a Harmer's New York auction on September 30th, 1957. And Henry K. Jarrett, the noted collector and forger, notified my father Bernard, and it was withdrawn. There's an award-winning article on Henry Jarrett by Stephen Roth in the 2015 and 2016 Collectors Club Philatelist. That was the source of the Jarrett photo. Specific details. The stamp is a genuine position 5. Hooray. It's all downhill from there on. The pen check mark is fake, while the Providence CDS is likely fine. The red 5 in circle was not used in Providence. There is no red paid hand stamp as you would expect on a genuine example. Many of these elements can be questioned or challenged, but finally, ta-da, the letter is dated February 27th, 1846, 6 more months before the stamp was even issued on August 24th, 1846. I think we can assume it is bad. Thank you to Charles Epting from H.R. Harmer for supplying the image of the H.R. Harmer catalog. We'll go to number 2 now. Pretty, eh? 1847 10C black, John A. Fox guarantee on the reverse. The beauty, the chutzpah. The blue Huntsville, Alabama 10 with stars is probably the most impressive of all the 1847 cancels, especially when genuine. Since I purchased this beauty, I've been besieged by a fellow auctioneer whose client missed out on it. I obviously still have it and don't intend to lose it. The pencil notation on the reverse is, I quote, "In my opinion, this cover is genuine in every respect. John A. Fox." Unfortunately, the cancel is a fake. It's just too good. The stamp is genuine with probable clean pen cancel. As a sidelight, the 1847 cover census lists 5 Huntsville, Alabama 10C covers addressed to Reverend Fred F. Cornell, or a derivative name, 4R to New York. See another forged cover. Okay, we're going to number 3. Here we have something interesting. Again, US 1847 10C black, plus a 2-cent Boughton City Dispatch local of New York on a cover to Canada. That was a mouthful. Originally, when we saw this cover, we suspected the local stamp was a replacement for the original and was noted in the catalog description. All of the markings are correct, and this was approximately as it appeared in 1848. This is a very rare combination. Well, guess what? Further studies showed that the 10-cent, though genuine, with a genuine cancel, did not belong either. The ink cancels on the stamp and the cover did not match. Somewhere out there in philately may be the correct stamps, or try the lottery. The cover was withdrawn from the sale. Moving on to number 4. Oh, is this pretty? United States 1861-62 issue with a 30-cent orange, a 3-cent rose, and a 24-cent lilac on a famous Augustine Hurd Company folded letter sheet to a popular destination, China. What history? So colorful. Take a closer look. Originally, it was part of the very famous Philip Rust auctions by the Harmer Rook auction firm. The Harmer companies are everywhere. In the 1950s. Next, it was part of the famous Theodore Gore collection sold by Harmers in 1961. More recently, part of the extraordinary Hubert Skinner collection, never questioned or expertized. A free ride because of the name dropping of the collectors. More recently, 2014, it was sent to the Philatelic Foundation, who declared genuine cover, but all 3 stamps were replaced. Oops. I love this pretty cover and its history, and I bought it and studied it further. My observations were that the PF had made a mistake and convinced them of the error of their ways. In fact, the 3-cent and the 30-cent belonged. The errant child was the 24-cent being replaced. Yeah, some say 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Okay, how about this for impressive? $1.80 in postage. 1861 90-cent blue, 2 copies on an 1861 folded letter to one of the scarcest and valuable destinations, Manila, the Philippines. This is a quick view of the cover unfolded. This was one of the covers sold by Harmers at auction as part of the famous Manila find, but was missing the right-hand stamp. I have placed an incorrect stamp in situ just to give an idea of what it would look like. My wife and I, after 26 years so far, have not found the elusive Mr. Washington in auctions, online, on the moon. The cover is mentioned in the July-August 2011 Collectors Club Philatelist article by Ken Gilbert titled Vault Diggings at the National Postal Museum. Salute to you, Smithsonians. If anyone out there finds a 90-cent with the ID of the Boston paid, I will certainly pay a hefty price for it. Oh well, there's always the lottery again. The lot description is courtesy of Phil Bansner, who has the auction catalog. Number 6, okay, the big boy, the one we flashed at everybody to show the talk we're having. United States, 1869, 90-cent carmine and black, tied by a red star cancel on an 1869 state of Rhode Island all over envelope to France. Perhaps my favorite and certainly the most expensive secret Christmas gift from my wife. Just feast your eyes on this beauty. It is a fact that there is only one example of an 1869 90-cent on cover, and this is not the one. What you say, there is another one. It is called the Ice House cover, and it is genuine, just not as pretty. Oh well, simple lesson. If you are going to forge a cover, do not, I repeat, do not forge a unique one. This was made with European class and beauty. There has to be a lesson learned here other than the uniqueness. The cover would have to weigh almost 1/4 pound as 90-cent would pay the 6 times rate. Forgers, watch your rate. This cover is absolutely genuine. The stamp is genuine, but is a replacement for what probably was a 15-cent, the standard rate to France. The time cancel is also fake. All this creativity, this is the punchline, and effort did not go to waste. Please read the accompanying Guiana 1974 certificate. If your Italian is rusty, basically it says that it is genuine and perfect. Another way of doing a 90-cent, if you were going to make it, court papers. Not nearly as classy, but court paper envelopes carried bulky papers, so 90-cent or more could be justified. But still, this example is bad also. Number 7, and now for a stamp that needs no introduction to even the non-philatelists, the 1918 inverted Jenny, always revered, often imitated. This example, made in the 1980s by Peter Winter, no relation to Johnny or Edgar for you old rockers, is one of the better ones. Many of these have no gum, but this block has quite good gum, and even some red and blue ink offset on the reverse. Winter missed out on the shade of carmine when compared to an ordinary 24 cent, but it is quite good overall. Another way of making an invert is to cut out the center of a normal copy and reinsert it inverted. Feather in the paper and regum it. A fair amount of work for the forger, but easy to tell in watermark fluid. We did this much faster than a forger would. Now, here is a unique invert use, the only one on cover. Not too hard to figure out this one may be bad. See to whom it is addressed. And I'm not that old. The inverted Jenny forgery is useful to fill one page in a Scott National album. Every US collector should have one. They retail for only about $300 plus, which is a bit cheaper than the real McCoy. Off we go to number 8. These are getting to be complicated, these atoms that are coming up. Here we have a cutout clipping from a Scott US specialized catalog, albeit an old one. The pertinent stamp is the 1854 50-cent Adams Express stamp on the right. Got it? Okay. Here is the Scott 2020 listing. Notice the 50 cent has been changed. Now see this Adams Express cover with the 50 cent tied by pen strokes with an Adams Sacramento Mark 7 CDS. Now see the Philatelic Foundation cert, where the stamp is declared a fake. It's the wrong paper, wove, not laid. Now see all 4 images. The stamp on the cover in question is in fact the image in the Scott catalog. Now we know why it was changed. Perhaps a dealer, collector, forger had sway with the Scott back then and sold it to Alfred F. Lichtenstein, a great collector. Your thoughts, please. I would have called it the 1LU2 cutout. Keep this in mind for the next items I will be showing. And now some more Adams Express envelopes for your viewing pleasure. This one's a bit more complicated. This is the same design of the previous 50-cent stamp, but is used in its correct intent as a hand stamp. Let's see where to start. How about what is genuine? The Bamber hand stamp is accepted as genuine, along with a 3-cent red stationery impression, and the 25-cent 1L1 stamp on blue paper and the addressee. They're okay. The 50-cent hand stamp, the 25C stamp, and the large Adams cancel were allegedly added to make an attractive and valuable cover. The reason why it is claimed to be a forgery is that the 2 companies were not in operation at the same time. Adams and Company Express in Sacramento is believed to have ceased operations in February 1855, and the J. Bamber Contra Coastal Express is claimed to have started to use the trademarking in 1858. An interesting sidelight. See the pencil marking L191. This was Alfred F. Lichtenstein's notation made on the covers he placed in the Courts of Honor exhibitions. You will find a fair number of covers if they haven't been erased. Look a bit familiar? Deja vu. Here we go again. This poor battered envelope has the same genuine items as does the previous Adams cover, with a slight change. On this cover, the Adams stamp is on white paper and a different cancel, and was also certified as a forgery long before the 50-cent hand stamp. This makes a matching pair with the previous cover. An interesting sidelight with this Alfred F. Lichtenstein cover is the reason for its condition. The family had a country house in Connecticut, and Alfred would bring up philatelic material to play with. One night in the winter, no one was home, the house caught fire, and the covers, a lot of them being stored in those horrible plastic flip books, were thrown out of a second-story window into the snow, where they sat for several weeks. Many were soaked and just left to dry out without removing them from the books. When I got to inspect them many years later, most were brittleized and fell apart, just like this one, many worse. Okay, our neighbors to the north. 1860, Vancouver Island, tuppence halfpenny imperforate, with some US stamps on an 1862 letter via San Francisco to Ottawa. The tuppence halfpenny stamp came first imperforate and then almost immediately perforated. The former is extremely rare, the latter is quite common. Imperforate had not been known used until this cover surfaced, about 70 years ago in the Alfred F. Lichtenstein collection, accompanied by this little cryptic sheet note. I quote a bit out of context. I took off the part of the 3 US 3-cent stamps, same as the ones enclosed, which means he had them separately, is over the tuppence halfpenny Vancouver Island as follows. April 7th, 1894, this was written. Continues as, this cover was purchased from Robson Lowe, who got it among a lot of old covers from the original party. Signed, the initials I do not know. If anybody can help me with it, it'd be great. We illustrate the rate by using a similar perforated tuppence halfpenny cover that appeared in a June 24th, 2014 Siegel sale. The cover bore the 2 tuppence halfpenny stamp to get out of Vancouver Island, and the US 3-cent stamps, of which 5 were required, the 3-cent stamps sometimes placed over the tuppence halfpenny to move the cover on. They were canceled in San Francisco, and the cover was on its way to Ottawa. Today, experts state the Dale Lichtenstein cover bears a perforated stamp with the perforations trimmed off to make it appear as an imperforate. Another Vancouver Island. This is the next issue from 1865. They moved from pence to cents. This has the same machinations as the first issue. Stamps issued imperforate and then perforated, both exactly the same design. Our cover here is perfectly genuine. The 5-cent red imperforate is very valuable. The perforated, not so. The cover realized $60,000 in a Dale Lichtenstein sale, a couple of decades ago. It had been exhibited throughout its life and never questioned. But in 2004, the Philatelic Foundation did. It's tough, but the giveaway is where is most of the vertical portion of the P in the blue page. It supposedly disappeared with the perforations that were cut off. The other sides were easy to trim. It's a hard call because of the gap between the stamps where the blue may not have been impressed. That is why certificates are called opinions. What do you think? Pause and study for a moment. All right, moving on. To the south now, British Guiana, Great Britain combination cover. In 1853, envelope from Great Britain to the colony of British Guiana on the north coast of South America. The GB 1 shilling green paid the standard rate to virtually every colony on the planet. The British Guiana 4-cent, very rare on cover, but by itself paid the internal rate from the coast to Georgetown. There are only 2 or 3 other combination covers known. Shown here, the Philatelics Foundation certificate of 2002 stating the Great Britain 1 shilling is okay on the cover and the British Guiana 4-cent is a counterfeit. Actually, the opposite is true, shown by way of a 1993 APS certificate. The stamp is genuine with the color faded and has to belong on the cover because it bears a May 24, 1853 circular date stamp matching the same date on the back of the cover. It would be almost impossible to find a genuine copy of a dated cancel stamp and match it with a cover bearing CDSs with the exact same date as the stamp. So the 4C blue British Guiana stamp is real and belongs. The whole cover corner has been added, and the 1 shilling Great Britain does not belong. Certainly is impressive, isn't it? Okay, one of my favorites. This is beyond impressive. Nova Scotia first issue cover complete. First issue covers are very rare from any country and very popular. But when 4 stamps are involved, inconceivable. Yet this is about how the cover would have looked in 1858. The only difference would be the order of the stamps, except the bisect. There are, I believe, only 2 covers to New Zealand, and the rate was 1 shilling 10 pence halfpenny. These stamps are the only way to pay the rate. So you ask, what is real? Here is the cover front as appeared in the Argenti collection and subsequently in the Canai collection. I believe the original cover was dismantled very early in life just to get the stamps for collectors, then folded up and no one bothered to open it for many decades. Shame, as this would have been the most valuable cover in Nova Scotia. Another wonderful first issue cover from Nova Scotia. This one is exactly as it would have appeared in 1854, except for a cancel or 2 or 3. Remarkably, this equals the largest known franking of the 6-penny yellow-green and the 1-penny brown, all on one folded letter to England. Before I use the term restoration, all that remained of the stamps on this cover were 2 intact 6-pennies. And believe it or not, scrapings of the remaining 8 stamps. I've seen this desecration a few times in my life. I don't know the reason for the destruction. If you want a clue to the fraudulent nature of this cover, look at the cancels. They should all be the same size, but they are different sizes. Still really impressive. Now we jump across the Atlantic and south a bit to a different part of the British Commonwealth globe, Cape of Good Hope, with their famous and popular triangle stamps. The 1864 P blue on cover is relatively common, but cute. However, bisects are another world. And here you have one. I always like this cover to England. The rate is correct. Yet one group from South Africa, the PFSA, dismissed it by calling it faked. That was it. And another in England, the BPA, I quote, "It is not prepared to give an opinion as the bisect is not tied." This is typical for some expert. No tie, no good. Pretty simplistic. We wish they had studied the one manuscript, one crayon mark, which actually extends further vertically than the bottom points of the two four-penny. Therefore, let's see the phantom illustration completing the stamp. Therefore, half of the bisect could not have been chopped off after the crayon was applied. At least the BPA did not say the stamps did not belong. We believe in this old girl. Perhaps we will fight for her another day. And now into the rare, crude, and popular woodblock issue. This impressive, colorful 1861 folded letter sheet bearing a pair of the four-penny blue woodblocks, canceled in red, plus a pair of the one-penny red from the normal issue, also canceled in red, both paying the 4p normal internal postage, plus the 6p registry. So the rate is correct. Supposedly the blue pair does not belong. Under the UV light, we saw a color change between the two cancels of the two block pairs, but this may have been affected by the different stamp colors. No certificate has been sought by me, as it probably would be a waste of money. You have to wonder, though, why someone would place a four-penny pair, cataloging in Scott 12,500 alone, without the red cancel premium on this quote-unquote forged cover. Alfred Lichtenstein, perhaps the greatest collector of the capes, thought it was real, as it was in his collection for over 50 years. Another Cape of Good Hope cover, four-penny pale gray blue, woodblock cover. Here is the back with a postmark. Okay, this is pretty cut and dry, to quote the PFSA. Certificate states, ready for this? The stamp is genuine but creased. It cannot be certified as belonging to the wrapper. A forger would try to get away with this because the four-penny stamp alone catalogs in the Stanley Gibbons catalog, 2,000 pounds, but on cover 6,000 pounds. A tidy premium. I have a problem with this certificate. They specifically state the stamp is creased. But if you notice, it was caused by the vertical filing crease of the cover, which was very common back in those days. Hence, the stamp was creased whilst it was on the cover back in December 1861. I have not bothered to resubmit it. I have found many foreign experts are hesitant to reconsider certificates. This is a dilemma. Sometimes one has to wait for the regime change. Another four-penny cover. Bird of a different color, though, no pun intended. It has two certificates. We will start with a 1990 British Philatelic Association stating the stamp is genuine, been repaired, the color affected, and tied on a fake cover front by a forged obliteration. Phew. Anything else? The next certificate, 2007, by our old friends at the PFSA, is much more concise. I quote, on a piece, which is in fact the front, bears woodblock forgery with a forged cancellation, end quotes. Wow. two experts can't agree that it is a genuine stamp. I add to the doubts in another direction. Why would a forger put all this work into a cover front, which is far less valuable than a complete cover? Sometimes common sense should enter into the equation, maybe not this time. Now, this stamp I feel so sad for. It's the Rodney Dangerfield of philately. It gets no respect. The first stamp of Russia, the famous 1875 imperforate 10K brown and blue, unused. That's the kicker. It has been said by some current experts, there are no unused examples, or only a pair in the St. Petersburg Museum, or 5, according to expert Zbigniew Mikulski. Its reputation is so bad that no one trusts them unused. Here is the first example. From the famous Fabergé and Goss collections, with a BPA certificate, 1958, signed by Robson Lowe, P.L. Pemberton, and Arthur Ginn. The Goss auction description and the BPA cert basically stating unused with gum. A second certificate, 2017, from the AIEP, signed Paul Buxbayew, cleaned and regummed. All right. A third 2018 foundation certificate stating cancel, removed, and regummed. Differences of opinion from all over. Let's move on to another one. Example number 2. A lovely example, signed by the fame expert A. Brun. I could find no presence of a cancel, albeit using only a strong magnifier and a UV light. I'm sure this would not pass muster in today's climate. M. Brun's photo was courtesy of Jean-Francois, his grandson. Thank you, Jean. A third example, finally a photograph of an example plus its accompanying auction description. The foundation certificate and an RP, Royal Philatelic Society certificate, using VSC 6000 equipment, both of them. Also, a forensic document examiner, J.H. Luber, using VSC 2000 and stereomicropsy, all said unused with original gum. Results, unsold in the auction because I believe today nobody has faith it exists, even with today's technology. The stamp, I believe, has been damned. The real question is for relatively common stamp, canceled, and a history of at least a decent number of literate people together with industry, therefore much correspondence. Why have there been virtually no unused examples found? The stamp came out in 1857, 17 years after the penny black. Stamps were even being collected then. Why not this one? My personal opinion is the stamp is being unfairly persecuted. Maybe its day will come. And now the one I truly want. I find it very hard to pry from the individual who controls it. At one time, this was considered one of the greatest of US covers, a Klepp cover. Send shudders up your spine in the old days. This is the abbreviated auction description from the last time it was offered by Siegel in the Zolner auction. It was passed by or through Consul Klepp, Lester Brookman, Henry Hill, Raymond Wheel, Robert A. Siegel, my buddy Lou Grunin, Henry Zolner, and who knows who else. It is amazing no one really took a good look at it until 1998, when it was extensively examined and it was deduced that the strip did not originate on the cover. It was withdrawn from the Zolner auction. As a sidebar, a dearly departed friend, Mr. Robert Lyman, a truly great and significant dealer, was sent to Brussels for the Consul Klepp auction in 1957 with a buy bid from one of his clients. He didn't buy it. He dodged a bullet. I'll try to explain what a buy bid is. It is the bane of auction agents and auctioneers. Every client has a maximum price. What you'll have to do is wheedle it out of them. My trick is usually something like this. The man says, I want to buy the cover. I'm giving you a buy bid. The cover, let's say, generally is worth $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. I say, okay, that's fine. Let's see what we've got. And I check the bidding on it. I lie through my teeth and says, well, I'm opening it for $10,000. So let me write down 11,000 for you. And I hear the man gasp on the other side. And he goes, what, are you crazy? I go, no, that's what's going on. He says, oh, maybe you meant maybe $5,000 or $4,000. Well, even that's a bit too high. I said, well, wait a minute. I guess you don't have a buy bid, do you? He goes, well, no. And then I goes, all right. I said, how about we make it you have 5,000 on it? Is that all right? Yes, that's okay. And that's how you get rid of them. Okay, so there you have it. Just over at 20 items. Not really much, but I have tried to be quite selective in my choices. They're also quite expensive now. My talk has been to educate, scare, and perhaps entice some of you to collect this aspect of philately. John Boker, a wonderful collector and expert, had a US 1847 collection along with 100 others, which included forged examples of his genuine rare covers. That gives collecting forgeries a certain respectability. Remember, for those who wish to collect genuine material, be sure to avail yourself to the appropriate expertising bodies around the world. It's cheap insurance. Also, remember my favorite expression. The best thing about collecting forgeries is when you make a mistake. Think about it. Thank you for attending my presentation. I'd also like to thank the Collectors Club and the APS for the opportunity to be here tonight, as well as Scott Tiffany of the APRL for his help.
Keith, thank you for that fascinating presentation. Every presentation is different and unique in its own way. I didn't know what to expect tonight, but I'm coming away very, very impressed. We're going to be presenting Keith a virtual certificate. While we're not in the building itself, we can still maintain some of our traditions. Keith, you will be getting a token of appreciation from the Collectors Club. It is not a glass of wine. It is an engraved medal along with a certificate thanking you for your participation, commemorating it. The medal will be forwarded to you under separate cover.
Thank you very much, Mark.
You're very welcome. I'm sure you have a collection of these already. But over the years,
Yeah, but they're all fake.
Well, you'll have to just keep coming back. Okay.
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 How can you tell a pen cancel is faked? And that's asked by Melanie Rogers.
Oh, well, that's usually you look at other examples of the same period. I don't want to get into expertising here, but we could go on and on for ages. But you see the time period, and pen cancels were used, I'll say less up to 1850 or so, thereabouts. After that, it was all date stamps. There's a group exceptions, but you have then have the experience for having seen these kind of strokes and inks and stuff, and most of the darker ones have now turned brown. So it's experience. And also, if you don't have the experience, then send them off and get them expertized. Usually they're not faked, but that's a nice cheap way to fake a cover with a pen stroke.
Okay, Douglas Combs asks, could you tell us something about Sperati's French forgeries?
Oh, please. You got another 5 hours? It goes on and on. Oh, my goodness. I can't really tell you about it. I never met the man. And actually, my father never met the man, too. But they were concurrent, one would say, of going on. I've sold hundreds of them through the years. The covers are really great. You should see his fake covers. They're very, very rare. But the stamps are all clinically assessed by the BPA's books. They're a lot of fun just to find them, and some of the forgeries are worth more than the stamps, especially things like the New York provisionals, occasionally a 10-cent 47. But I've got one personal story to do with it. I'll be quick. I was involved once with perhaps selling book number 1. Sperati had books, and they were all mounted up, and book number 1 was his personal one that was given eventually to his daughter. So I was approached by somebody, where was it here, in this country, saying, I've got Sperati's book number 1. I go, unbelievable. That's got all the big boys in it. So he said, yes, he wants X number of dollars for it. And I said, well, let me go check around. I gave Walsky a call on the West Coast about it. He says, you know where book number 1 is? And I said, yes. Yes, it was stolen. So I had to back out of that very fast, told my friend to get rid of the book as soon as possible before the weight of the forces come down on him, and return it. Just get it in the mail and get rid of it. So that was, the price was like $25,000 for it. I might have paid it, but thank goodness I dodged a bullet there.
Okay. Keith, Ken Poland asks, on item number 13, how did they add the cover corner so well?
15 is this one, right here.
Oh, the British Guiana. How? Artists. I told you, it's artistry here. It's you see how it's feathered back in there. The stamp hides a lot of secrets of the paper that it would be there. It's just a good, it's just, this is what they can do to you. You got to be careful. It's, they actually, if my memory serves right, the cancel on the cover on the British port stamp is genuine. The rest is all gone. Actually, look on the APS certificate and you'll see the little lines on the cover from the tying. Whoops, we jumped countries there, but it's just work, artistry.
Yeah. Okay. Melanie Rogers asks, have any of these fakes or forgeries been discovered with ink analysis or some of the methods noted by the Institute of Analytical Philately? Several other have asked similar questions about using a different diagnostic equipment available now that was not available in the past.
Well, that I wouldn't have the information, but like the foundation would as they use it, or the Royal would, because it's their business. I don't see them. They will, but I've seen it. I've seen Larry at the foundation doing some wonderful things with lights and angles and stuff, and then we start seeing something develop which says, oh, this stamp doesn't belong on this cover because of this and that. Have any of mine? No. Mine are fakes and supposed to be fakes. I only get lucky if I make a mistake, as I said. So.
Okay. Frank Walton brings up a very interesting point. Concerning the Cape bisect, the red crayon looks like a large 5, not a 1 shilling. This
was it?
Represent a different accounting credit out of the 6-penny period.
He might very well be right there. Nevertheless, I got all wrapped up in looking at this thing and saying, hey, is this really a fake? So I didn't actually get that deep into it. I'm not into the rates too much, but I know them.
Okay. Casey Joe White is asking, regarding the Cape of Good Hope on cover front, why would a forger put a fake on a cover front that is worth so much less? Perhaps the forger couldn't afford the whole cover, or perhaps they thought that the cover front would get less scrutiny belonging to someone who couldn't afford the full cover.
Add to the list of the stupidity of the expertisers. I mean, why would anybody make something that's worth so little?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's like, why do people buy a bisect? They can't afford the rest of the stamp.
I never heard that, but that's very good.
Okay. Louis Morel, back to Nova Scotia's stamps, 8 stamps on a cover. I did not observe what was wrong with any of them. Can you clarify a little bit?
Oh, there were 5 stamps on the cover, wasn't there? There's the whole first issue. Listen, 4 plus the bisect. I got to remember that. There's 4 stamps plus a bisect. How can I tell that they don't belong on it? I mentioned during the talk that if you take a look, the cancels are not matching. And it was put together and then some cancels were feathered in to tie one to another to another. The order of the stamps, I have no idea what it would have been. It's the one with the set.
Oh, the set.
Yeah.
This one.
The 1 shilling could have been over where the 6 penny was. The 1 penny solid stamp, complete stamp, and the 3 penny could be in different positions. They're muddled together in order to show the appearance of this incredible cover, which, again, as I said, can only make up the rate. But I know they were put together.
Okay. Steve Pearson asks, why would valuable stamps that did not originate on a bad cover not be removed for collecting?
Why would that did not originate?
Yeah.
Why? Because they were trying to defraud somebody, or why do it? On the last one we just talked about, the 1 shilling, the 1 shilling there, it's $1,000 stamp. The Cape of Good Hope woodblock pair, the blue, that's probably a $3,000 or $4,000 pair. You got to be there to do it, to know why they did it. But on the other hand is, if that cover were good, well, that's a lot of money there to jack up from, say, 3,000 or 4,000. I mean, and just in today's dollars, jack it up to 30 or 40,000. It's an investment.
Okay, Ron Majors asks, with new technologies like the VSC 6000 HS, old covers with bad certs are now being found to be good, since the video spectral comparator can look at color, inks, cleaning, and etc., and can give more definitive information compared to older certs that were done with human eyes. Do you believe that this may be a good approach to look at debatable covers, or by corollary, to re-examine covers from the past?
Certainly. I mean, I think this is a valuable tool. Before, it was all opinion and experience and this and that. I mean, that's part of the fun of collecting forgeries, is when you make a mistake, right? And then you find out it's genuine.
But the Russian.
I've had a couple of vacations for that sometime. It ruined the collection, but that's okay. Move along. They're very useful things to have. Sometimes, though, I've been there when they're doing them and they aren't definitive. There's just so far you can go with it. So.
Yeah. Okay. David Sachs mentions several of the different forgers, the Spiro brothers, Renier Bloom, Clive Fagenbaum, Sigmund Friedel, and several. And he says, who do you think is the most dangerous forger of all time?
I don't know. I don't know. Every one of them died before I came along.
The one that got you, right?
Actually, my favorite was Jarrett. He did. That guy was an artist. He was wonderful. Just, and I've owned a bunch of his items. They were tasteful.
Yeah.
They were tricky, but they were forgeries. Who was the best crook? I don't know how to say that.
Okay. Well, who is the best artist?
I don't know, because I don't know who made a lot of these covers.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about covers that, say, were in Lichtenstein's collection, and they were pre-war. That cover, the one with the woodblock pair on it, that I believe was bought by Lichtenstein if I get the year right, I'll be okay. 1933 WEPA exhibition. How about that? When he swapped a collection of, I can't remember, with Riesco and got Riesco's gold medal winning Cape of Good Hope collection in one fell swoop. Oh, no, it went through the Swiss Postal Museum. The oh, I know, listen to this. You want a great story on history? You know all the big blocks of Switzerland that are in the Swiss Postal Museum? Most of them came from Liechtenstein. And a deal was made for Liechtenstein to get Riesco's Cape of Good Hope, and those blocks went into the Swiss Postal Museum, and then something was made whole, you know, Riesco was made whole by something else. But that's a great story you brought up there that I remember being told.
Okay. Well, you know, back in the past, it was acceptable to buy reprints to fill spaces in albums. That's Spyro Brothers, Fournier, and all that. So this may be an extension. Anyway, Van Siegling is asking, do you collect fake and forgery from around the world or just from limited countries?
Oh, no, anything. Well, I never really, I like buying them because I like buying them, the artistry and stuff. And whether or not the artistry is excellent on a cover. Oh, let's say we get a fake of a German state cover. All right. And there are tons of them, which is why the German state stamps, like the Bavarias and everything, are worth more used than they are unused. On covers, they're even better still. I'm not conversant with those covers to detect a forged cancel, but the expertisers over there are. I would also find it probably a little beyond my capabilities to explain them to a audience like this one in the United States to try to show you why some Saxony cover is a fake because of this line or this line. And I generally, as you've seen here, try to do things. What my original goal was, I don't want to buy a cover that if it were genuine was worth under $50,000. That's what my goal was. That didn't last that long, but I got quite a few here. And, you know, take the 90 cents, 69. Back in the day, be a nice $3 million cover, right?
Yeah. Okay. The final question before we wrap and go to the chat rooms is from Eric Mulder. What is your opinion of expertisers marking a stamp or cover as fake where it is only an opinion? And this is a very interesting question.
No, I don't like them marking them at all, because what if it turns out to be genuine? There's an arrogance involved there by the expertiser that he is the end all and be all to it. He isn't, as you have said, and it's been known before. Items have come back as genuine that were damned. So to deface this item is, I think, criminal. There's records of all these things all over the place. Just send it off for a certificate and get another certificate. Hey, support the expertisers. Who cares if the darn cover goes through 3 times? The foundation isn't going to cry about it.
If you forge a cover, how does the forger score the money? Do they sell it to a private collector and then it comes out as a forgery, or is it?
No, you're talking. You're saying sort of like, how did I get these?
No. If forgers.
Oh, because he sold. Oh, let me see. Well, I'll give you an idea. The last one, the number 12 cover, the strip of 3, you know, one of the greatest of all US cover. That's the last one. That cover. Think of the people who spent the money on it through the decades from 1950, whatever it was. That cover, catch this, in 52? Whatever. The Klepp cover brought the equivalent of $7,000 back then. Think about it. And subsequently, as it went through, unbeknownst to everybody, that it went from this to that to Louis selling it to Zolner, you know, in his auction, and I don't know what it brought there, but it had to have brought maybe $100 grand or so, or a little bit more. Everybody made money on it except the last person.
I was just
So,
thinking of talented Mr. Ripley with
shaped like a pyramid.
I was just thinking talented Mr. Ripley with John Malkovich, where he's meeting in some piazza in Italy, selling forged sketches.
Oh yeah. You know, that's how forgers make a living. I mean, everybody's got to make a living. So
Has the technology made it harder to do for forging?
I don't know, but I think it's very tough to fool age. In other words, the fact that these things are 100 years old or whatever, or 80 years old. Well, no, actually all this stuff was 150 years
No,
old.
you got this C3A. What year was that?
Well, come on, that's not the C3A is a fun thing like that. I mean, they're as I said, you can get one. Hey, come on, own a C3A for $300. What do you got to lose? I'll sell them. I don't sell them.
Could you tell us an insert with a loop?
No, I with all due respect, if you put a real C3 next to it, right, just a real one, and you start looking at the different impressions and things like that, but that block of 4 there is a kicking one. I got 4 blocks of 4 of it. So that's my best. It was the first one I bought, and then I just bought a few more just to keep them off the market. And I looked at the back of it, and come on, how many guys think about putting offset on the back of a stamp, you know, when the sheets are laid on each other? I go, that was a really classy move. I mean, that was over and above. The rest of them have got gum in the back, which looks like, you know, you painted it on. But then you saw the difference in the color between a real C3 and the C3A. There, you put them together and you go, what happened to the stamp here? So
I wanted to ask you about contemporaneous forgers, regummers. I remember a few years ago, there was a ring out of England, and they'd take like unused Jubilees, regum them as never hinged, and then try to sell them. I mean, they were easy to tell because, you know, the stamps curled, the gum didn't look right, but I'm sure they got away with a lot of selling this stuff on eBay, and I remember them selling it all regummed. Do you find, is there any of those types of modern day forgers still operating to your knowledge?
oh, of course, regummers. Oh, fabulous. You know,
Cancels?
well, in our philately, our general philately here, short of the Germans, is unused is better than used. All right, you get in the German states, and used is generally better than unused. So you go where the grass is. You know, the Germans fake all the cancels, and we fake everything being wonderful, never hinged, very fine jumbo margins. Well, if we have it, we'll make it. You know, and the thing that, if you'll notice in my presentation, is these items have a history. It's not like it just flashed out of the pan and said, here it is. I mean, you see the number 12 cover, I go to that. I mean, it's owned by Curly, Larry, Moe, Lambert, you know, Hendricks and Ross, you know, Sacco and Vanzetti. Everybody owned this thing. It's got to be good, right? Guess what? They all made the mistake. And that is the bit I like about the history of these things is thank God it's not me, but they all did this. Now, think about it, though. They all went from one to the other to the other. The only one who loses on it is the end user. Who's left holding the ball?
Have there been any scandals where the experts gave false readings for money?
Oh,
I
don't know if anybody was prosecuted for it, but you
Yeah. I went to jail for that.
You got to remember something important here. These are opinions.
Yeah.
Now, this is in fact, you know, God didn't come down and say, this is a genuine thing. These are opinions.
But some people,
Are you going to be prosecuted for having an opinion on something unless you were directly involved in it? And
There was one instance where a group of people did conspire to create false certificates for one of the expertising services. I don't think we shouldn't mention which one it was because that's irrelevant, but it has happened before.
Yeah, and they were prosecuted.
Yeah.
And they went to jail.
I knew a dealer
Yep.
collector who ran his own expertising service, and I don't think those two should be run together. That's a conflict of interest.
Of course it is.
And I don't want to mention who it is, but probably everybody knows.
Oh, it's a great quote I get from collectors when they come in. Even the guy who sold it to me told me what a great deal it is. So
It is important, though, to recognize that the foundations of the hobby at the high end rest on the fact that there are people with great integrity that are doing this certification. And the idea that we couldn't trust certs would be a very negative thing for the hobby.
obviously.
So, I mean, I know it's humorous, but it's also something that would tremendously impact the investment that's been made in the hobby. And I know you're not saying that. I don't mean to imply you are, but I feel obligated here, having invested in a couple of pieces here and there, that I certainly hate to find out that the certs were fake.
Like I say, I've certainly seen a number of wrong certificates over the years. As a sweeping generalization, they're often Europeans expertising British Commonwealth material. But I've got the wrong royal certificates as well. They're not infallible.
Oh, no. I'm placed in a situation recently to do with, double overprint on, can't remember, South Africa something, whatever. And I got from one expertiser that it was a fake, and I got from another expertiser that it was genuine. Now, I'm acting on behalf of my client. What do I do?
Yeah, I mean, certainly as you've become experienced and as a specialist collector, you see a lot of material, whereas the expertiser may only see one in his life. And I value my judgment over most of the experts, having seen so much of the material. The forgers just leap off the page at you.
Right. No, and that is the one failure I see on the expertising bodies that I deal with is they don't go to specialists in it and bring them in. Oh, you can have the boys there who do the usual stuff in the shop, but the foundation is the best for doing that. The best for saying, this is generally out of our purview, or we're okay with it, and they will send it off to 2 or 3 other people. No, that's when I'm waiting 6 months later, waiting for a certificate, because 3 say it's good and 3 say it's fit. But they do that the best of anybody. I find it a bit of a, as you were saying, Simon, that there's a bit of an arrogance out on some expertising bodies that they don't pursue the people who handle this stuff all the time, and they have to be consulted on it. My 2 cents on it.
They are covers of 1879. They are covers of 1879 Afghanistan tiger head issues, the early big ones.
You're breaking up.
Which I am asking about the early covers of Afghanistan, which bears the tiger head issues.
What
Can you
about
hear
them?
me?
Yeah,
What?
the tiger head covers.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
Okay.
go ahead.
They actually don't bear any postmark or nor a pen cancellation. How can we decide if the cover is genuine or not?
Well, this is a question of having experience and being subjected to seeing the material. Once you get a history of looking all the covers that you are quite sure are genuine, there is usually a continuity to them. In other words, a lot of them, especially back in the very early days, is the correspondence, the number of people on the correspondence who were writing was very limited. So you could
The manuscript and the writing and Persian
so you get to see if it's the same old guy over and over again, then you generally are inclined to say this makes sense, that this, even though it's not tied on the cover, that it makes sense and it's within the time period it makes sense that it's genuine, even though it's not tied. And I brought that up a bit on that bisect of the Cape of Good Hope, where there are expertisers that will not certify untied bisects. I mean, they
Absolutely
just
right.
won't.
I agree.
And that is totally unfair.
Are there expertisers who actually also work in law enforcement? Because it sounds like a lot of their skills might translate over there for some of what goes on. So, you know, in terms of forgeries and authentication.
Well, I worked with the FBI for a while, but that was just a scam. That's all. We had to catch a guy who was willing to buy stolen stuff. That's when a C3A forgery came in very handy, when the guys were trying to sell it to this guy. So,
Okay.
but I think they're brought in, but it's usually, you got to understand, in philately, it's usually peanuts concerning. This is not a concerted effort by a large group of people to defraud. These are just random, isolated instances of where somebody got gypped.
Detect forgery in stamp. You might be able to detect forgery in passports based on paper.
Yeah, document people. You want to know who some of the best forgers that were assisted on doing it? Okay, I'll give you one. You guys all know it. The Ice House cover. All right. Somebody say yes.
Yes.
The Ice House cover has a stamp on it that does not belong. Okay, we all know that? Okay.
Mention that.
Do you want to know who fixed the cover? So I can say who it is. Bob Lyman took it over to England and had MI6 people who used to make up during World War II all the fake passports, fudge it into it. That's who did it.
Thank you all.
All right.